guys, this is how to live in a van in the summertime and not fry. Okay guys, and one of the best things you can do is to do like I've done just now and move into the shade. And the cool thing about that is, it's free. Now, if you're going to be camping in the shade for a few days, I suggest that maybe if you've got like a refrigerator and all this other like high draw stuff, you might want to invest in an auxiliary solar suitcase with at least a 50-foot long cord on it so that you can move it around into the sun and adjust it throughout the day. If not, if you're just, camping with a house battery that is running off your alternator, or you don't even have any power in the back at all, then you probably don't have to worry about it. But yeah, one of my best things I think you guys can do is to just get into the shade. Okay, some stuff that I find absolutely necessary for the summertime, whether you live in a van or sticks and bricks or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you're in a hot climate like I'm in right now, which is, 90s or 100 plus temperature, then you're going to want these things. And I'm sure you guys have seen them before, like a spray bottle to mist yourself with to keep cool. And like this is really handy. It's just an old cotton scarf that I have, and I just, as you can see, it's wet. I just soak it with water, and then I wrap it around my neck as a cooling scarf. They have always had something similar to this on the market. Sometimes they have those absorbent cooling beads inside of them and stuff so that you can put it around your neck and keep cool. Another thing I like to do is to soak my t-shirt pretty wet and stuff and just stay out in the cool breeze and or fans. And that brings me to personal fans. Now, a lot of you probably have a fantastic fan or a vent fan or something like that in your rig, and that's great and everything, but I feel that it's extremely necessary, whether you have a vent or not, to have some personal fans on hand, and these are great. This one here in particular is really cheap. You can probably buy them for like $5 or $10 at Walmart. I can't remember how much I paid for this one, but it's USB powered, so you can even plug it into your laptop and use your laptop battery if you have to, or those little handheld cell phone battery banks will work. Or if you have a setup like mine, you can hook it directly to your 12 volt and have this fan running continuously if you so choose. And then these are my favorite. This is an old one. I'm going to be upgrading and getting the new one, but this is the Opolar personal fan. And as you can see, the battery pack acts as a handle, and then there's the little power button. And it's a little tiny lithium battery on the inside, and see, it's got 3 different speeds. And it charges via USB. I think it's on the other side. It's got the little, and as you can see, this one's a few years old, so it's got the old-fashioned plug in it. And the cool part about this fan, now I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but you can flip it up and push the battery pack behind itself. And it's got these little legs on the bottom, and now it could just sit there and be like a desk fan, which comes totally in handy if you don't want to hold it all the time, and you still have a personal fan blowing on you. And I think that that's very important. Even if you do have, a couple of vent fans in your rig, you need something that's going to be, if it's this hot especially, you need something that's going to be blowing directly on you, that you can move to wherever you want to. And they've got those clip fans, and they've got all kinds of stuff, but these just happen to be my favorite because I love everything that has to do with charging off of USB, because I don't want to have to use a lot of electricity. And whether I have the power for it or not, I just have always tried to conserve electricity. But yeah, so I think those are extremely necessary, whether you live in a house or a van or whatever, just to keep yourself cool. Because not everybody's air conditioner is really going to be working very well in, 100+ degree temperatures, at least in my experience, especially if you're in a humid climate. So you're going to want to at least have a personal fan blowing on you whenever you can. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what I think is even more important than having a fan or accessories or whatever you want to call them. I think part of it is common sense. You just travel, you make sure that you go to a higher elevation in the summertime, or you go out to the coast where it's cooler. Just, you know, basically stay away from temperatures that are going to be, you know, in the hundreds. But you can't always do that. Reality is that you might have a family situation, or you might have a job to go to, or an emergency, and you're stuck someplace where you're going to get extremely hot weather or extremely cold weather. And it's very important to strategize all of this stuff that might happen before you even put your van together. Okay, so this is all stuff you need to do before you're living in your van. You need to think. You need to think about, what if I get caught in 100-degree weather sometimes? What if it's going to be really cold? And one of the biggest factors is going to be your windows. Okay, now one of the reasons why I have a cargo van is because I didn't want as many windows, not just for security, but because of insulative reasons as well. I still wanted light to come in my van, don't get me wrong, and I love having the scenery. That's why I keep them kind of open a lot of times. But you also want at least one wall of your van to be solid. You don't want it to have the windows, so that you can use that to make your van solar passive. And what I mean by that is, if you want your van to be warmed by the sun in the wintertime, you can park it to where your windows face the east in the morning. So you get all of that good sunshine warming up your van. Okay? But it keeps it inside because the windows are not very good insulators. Okay? So it's the heat or the cool is going to escape through the window. So if in the wintertime, if you're parked with your van and the windows toward the east and then your solid wall toward the west, then your van is going to hold all that heat for you, and you're not going to have to use as much fuel or whatever to heat your van. Plus, it's nice because it's darker in the wintertime and you get all that nice light. Well, in the summertime, like it is right now, I park my van the opposite way. I make sure that the side of my van that doesn't have any windows is facing east in the morning. So when the sun comes up, even if I don't have any shade, I still have enough time in the morning to where it stays relatively cool inside of the van, especially with fans going and the doors open, to where I can tolerate it and then possibly be able to move to another spot in the shade. Now, if I wasn't going to be moving to another spot in the shade, it still applies. At least you're going to have afternoon shade where your doors, you know, are open, which are my side doors. And you're also, like I say, not going to have as much sun going through glass for as much of the part of the day. Now, you can also cover your windows temporarily and or permanently. And I suggest that if you have a passenger van that has windows all around, you take one side of your van, like particularly the driver's side that doesn't have a door, or of course, if you have a van that has doors that open or slide on both sides, you know, good for you, but you're going to have to pick which side that you want to have your solid wall. So you're going to have to cover those windows up. It's extremely necessary, and it's also will help give you more storage space as well, because if you cover those things and do it right on the inside, you can, you know, put stuff up against it. You can use it for storage. There's all kinds of advantages to doing that, but you're also insulating them so that they're not, you know, you're not getting all this sunshine in the summertime, and you're not losing all of your heat in the winter. It's very important. Okay, now if you're camped someplace for a couple weeks and you're like in the desert for some reason, and even in the wintertime this could apply too, because you know, there's places down like in Quartzsite or whatever that can get into the 70s or 80s even in the middle of the winter, and inside your van it's going to be an inferno even though it's January. So you want to make sure that these principles that I'm telling you about, you know, go with you even in the wintertime. And what you need to do in that case, if you're out in the middle of the desert where there's no trees, you're going to want to make your own shade. There's a lot of people that put up, you know, shade cloths and awnings. You can put a reflective Kevlar over your windows. There's windshield covers that you can buy for your van. I lucked out and my van actually had one. And if I remember, I will put it in the video. Okay guys, here is the cover that I had mentioned before. As you can see, it's covering my side window, and it's got some sort of like vinyl stuff on one side and then some like fuzzy on the other. And then if we come around here, you can see that it covers the windshield. And because of the color, it's extremely reflective. So the sunlight bounces off of it and prevents the heat from being able to come in the van in the first place. Now granted, it's not going to block at all, but it does block a lot. And it's very good. You can totally tell the difference when you have this thing on there. Now, like I said, I don't know what company makes these because this van, I bought it, it already had this thing. Now here's the cool thing. Look at on the inside. You still get a little bit of light coming in. It's not like it's totally blacking out everything. And that's extremely important when you're camping a long time. You know, like you can even use this in the winter because it'll help insulate the windows in the winter as well. Give like a little air gap in between as well, which is really nice. And you still get that nice sunlight. And you don't have to put up your privacy curtains for the front all the time if you don't want to, because your windshield's totally covered. Nobody can see you. So when you're out boondocking, this thing is great. It's really awesome. But like I said, I don't really know what company makes these. I think Bob Wells did a video about these covers. You might want to check out one of his, but I do remember from the video that you have to tell them the make and the model of your van because every van is different and they may not fit. So yeah, but again, I think that this, something like this, or even putting reflectics on the outside of the windows, or you know, if you're camped out for a long time, is really going to help. Even just probably a bed sheet would work, I would assume, as long as it's white, just to reflect the sun. So yeah, I hope that helps you guys. Again, I really don't, I apologize, I don't know what company makes these. If I find out, I'll put it in the description. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do, but the best thing ever is to make sure that you have the right amount of insulation. Now, I know there's people out there that say, don't insulate your van, don't do this, don't do that because of the heat. Well, they're kind of right, except for one thing. In the wintertime, it's harder to heat your van with no insulation. And if you touch the wall, it's going to be wet from the condensation. And also, you're going to freeze your hand off, right? So that's miserable. I wouldn't want to live in something like that. So you need to insulate it just enough to where it's sort of comfortable in the winter and it's not going to have as much condensation. But you also want to make sure that you don't insulate it so much that the heat in the summertime can't escape at night. And that's why a lot of folks say, don't insulate your van. It's stupid. You're going to fry in there, because they're talking about at nighttime when you're trying to sleep. You want the insulation to be thin enough still, especially in the roof, so when the heat dissipates, it can dissipate faster and you'll be able to get a good night's sleep a lot easier in your van. And what I did was I used reflective type insulation. It's called low E foam, and it's just like Reflectix, only instead of bubbles on the inside, the air bubbles, it has a little tiny bit of foam, and then it has reflective on one side and white on the other. And I just put the reflective side toward the outside of the van, so hopefully that will help reflect the heat, you know, away from me. And I've got just a tiny little layer. I didn't put much on there, especially on the roof, because I wanted that heat to rise and be able to dissipate, especially at nighttime, so that my van could cool down faster. That's the only caveat to that. If you put too much insulation, especially in your roof, then you're going to be probably okay in the winter, but if you're not going to travel away from the heat for whatever reason, you're going to be miserable in there, because it's still going to heat up, because all of that heat's going to come in through your windshield and through your glass, no matter how much you cover your windows, because they're so bad that your van's going to eventually heat up. And then at night, when it's 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it's still going to be sweltering in there, and you won't be able to go to bed and go to sleep in your own van because it'll be too hot, because the heat just can't get out. So that's what I wanted to stress, that you have to strategize, you know, how you're going to insulate your van so that you can adapt to the weather, because you may not be in the position where you can travel to, you know, cooler climates when you need to, or warmer climates when you need to. And my van is set up to where in the wintertime it's a little bit colder than I would like, especially on the floor, but I can keep it tolerable and I can keep it warm enough a lot of times, especially if I turn on the engine too, that it's comfortable in the wintertime. And it's easier to keep a van warm than it is to keep it cool. Just remember that. And most of you are not going to be able to put enough solar on your van to have an air conditioner. I mean, you can go to an RV park and plug in, or get a generator, which is going to piss all your neighbors off. But that's the only two ways that if you live in a van, you're going to be able to have an air conditioner, as far as I know. They have those little tiny personal coolers and all that kind of stuff. But from what I've heard, they don't work very well. And there's the doghouse coolers and all that, but they just don't work that well. So and they take a lot of power even still. So it's defeating the purpose. You're going to have to be sitting in the sun to get enough solar to run your air conditioner or run a generator and piss a bunch of people off. So to me, you know, if you strategically build your van and strategically travel to be able to adapt to the situation, you're a lot better off. Because I'm telling you, even with a suitcase solar and solar on your roof, you're not going to have enough real estate up there and enough space to store all the auxiliary panels that you need to keep your air conditioning running if you're living in a van or a small SUV or a car. You just can't do it. You might be able to run your car's AC, but that's not going to help you very much. You know, I mean, the only people that can do this, like readily or whatever, are the people that have Toyota Priuses, because they're set up for that. They have their own onboard generator, you know, so they're the ones that can run at least their car generator. I mean, their car air conditioner. They can't run, you know, an auxiliary one, but at least they can sit there and idle with their cooler on or whatever the car needs to do. But yeah, I mean, so you're going to have to strategically think about how you build your van and how you insulate it, and just make sure that one side of the van is solid so that you have that buffer of insulation and wall that you've built inside the van between, you know, the inside and the outside for the sun, you know. And then you, like I say, flip it in the wintertime so that all of that good solar energy will come into the van and help heat the van, you know. So you've got a steering wheel in your house. You can park it any direction you need to. And that's how I made my van. I call it my solar passive van, because like I say, it's got windows, you know, on one side and it's solid on the other, so that during the seasons I can turn my van as needed. And I'm sure that that is one of the most important things that you can do to keep yourself more comfortable in any kind of climate. You know, it's not going to be perfect, like I say, even in weather like what we're having right now. Even in a house, it's not going to be cool. Your air conditioner is going to be running overtime, and you're still not going to feel very good unless you're right in front of it. So yeah, having some personal, you know, fans and air conditioning is really, really going to be helpful to you. So yeah, make sure that you drink a lot of water. Make sure that you wet your t-shirt or have a wet scarf. Make sure you have a personal fan, not just your vent fan. They're great and everything, but you need a personal fan. Make sure that you have a spray bottle to spray yourself. And make sure that when you build your van in the first place, you help to make it, like, you know, passive, like solar passive, and do not put too much insulation in it, especially in the roof. If you want to super duper insulate your van, that's fine, but do not insulate the roof that much, because like I said, the heat in the summertime needs to be able to disperse. Okay, so I hope that helps you guys, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and hit the thumbs up, and we'll talk to you later. Have a good one.